Genesis chapter 1, verse 25. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. So when I read this part of creation, I found myself coming back to the same thought, which is that animals move through the world by instinct. They don't plan ahead the way that we do. They don't worry about the future. They very much live in the moment, trusting what they need, that what they need will be there. A wild animal doesn't question whether food will exist. It depends on the world designed by God to sustain itself. And when I thought about that, I pictured a deer, grounded and quiet and simply standing where it's been placed. A deer doesn't strive to grow its own antlers, just like a tree doesn't rush to grow its leaves. They grow because they are sustained. Now, I'm not saying that we should take all the behavior of animals as a life guide, because that would be crazy. But the instincts that animals have to live in the present made me pause and wonder what this actually says about God. And to me, it demonstrates a God who is trustworthy, a God who made a world where life can be rooted and sustained, and where growth happens not from anxiety, but by being planted in the right place. So, as we paint today, I want you to notice that trust and also what it tells you about the kind of God who made a world like that. Grab your supplies and let's get started. Hello, friends. Let's go ahead and get started by warming up on our scripture page. And before you worry about drawing this, I just want to give you a heads up that I have line art for this, and I'm going to show you how to transfer it to your watercolor paper. I want to make sure that these lessons are just super accessible, whether you feel like you're good at making art or not. By the way, I think if you're making art, then you're good at making art. So that is just something I want you to know, that basically you don't have to draw this on your own. Okay, that's what I want you to know. So if you are new here, thank you so much for joining me. What I am doing right now is I'm just painting with water, then I'm adding some color. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that my watercolor will be light enough that I can still see my words underneath. Now, if you don't want to write this all out yourself, you can, of course, use the link that's below this video, and that will allow you to get a printable sent to your inbox with this scripture. So you can just print it off and just glue it in your journal or tape it in, or however you want to do it. So just throwing that out there. Oh, and also for the line art, that is also there too, in the email. So if you're wondering where to get that or how to get it, make sure that you just use the link to sign up. And then what will happen is you'll get the first ever watercolor moments sent to you immediately. And then as soon as the video releases, then you will get the printable for this week as well. There might be some sort of tech issue. Look, if a tech issue happens and you can't get the printable, please feel free to email me back. You can reply to any of the emails I send to you, and then I can make sure you get the printable. You know, there's always tech things that happen. I just want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dry this super fast, and then I want to show you how to transfer this line art to your watercolor journal. All right, this is what the printable looks like. Now, when it comes to this, you're going to see there's two, because I know some of you do these lessons with someone else. So I wanted to, use as much paper as we can. You're going to be printing it off, so might as well have two on there. And what we're going to be doing is a transfer. I'm going to show you how to do it with a pencil and scribbling, and it's pretty simple. Or if you have a light box, you can just use a light box to transfer it over. But I know there are several of you who don't have that, so I want to show you how to do it. Just move this. First thing you do is make space. And then what you do is you're going to go ahead and scribble on the back. So I can see the lines where I've got my drawing. You guys should be able to see it too through the camera there. I think there's good enough lighting. And you're going to notice, like, I'm not tracing it like all trying to be all perfect. I'm scribbling, and this is intentional because, well, you'll see. It'll make sense after we do it. But remember, this is the back side, and I'm pushing kind of hard because I really want to get the graphite, the pencil, on the back of this paper. Now, I try to not have line art as much for these ones that we do in our journal, just because I know some of you are using different size journals, but I felt like for this one, providing it would be simpler for everyone, myself included. Takes me a minute to draw, and I usually have to erase a lot, so this makes it easier for me too. Okay, so I have this beautiful scribbly mess. And now I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to just, probably will be easier if you cut it so you can kind of position it better. Okay, what the heck, I'll cut mine too. Might cut a little bit off the bottom. And I know I'm cutting it real close here, guys. On the edges, those antlers were something else. Okay. And once you get it positioned where you like, we're going to put a little bit of blue painter's tape on the top. Actually, I'm going to cut just a bit more off of here. Okay. And I will just position this to my paper. Now, one thing that I'm trying to keep in mind is where the edge of this antler is. Then I have my binding there. I might have to kind of erase and change up the antlers a tiny bit. And I've got mine positioned closer to the bottom, like, of the paper, because I want space to add these leaves on the top. So maybe a little touch higher. Okie dokie. Tape that down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace over the top of these lines. And I'm pushing kind of hard. Not like I'm not trying to engrave into the paper, but I'm just going to show you. What's happening is by pushing down, I'm grabbing the pencil from this side and it ends up on here. Okay. And the reason why I said tape it on the top is you can check your work to see if you actually did go over a space or not. Sometimes I forget where I've already gone. And so this can be helpful.
And if you are not exact on the lines, it's okay. And that's why we scribble, because if you go a little outside of the line, then you'll still be able to catch some of the pencil underneath. If we tried to make it exactly on the line on the back, we'd have to make our lines on the front exact as well to catch the pencil. You can see I'm also using my left hand to kind of push, like I'm holding down the paper is essentially what I'm doing, just to keep it as smooth as possible. Okay, I'm kind of being a little messy here, but it's fine. It really is fine because they don't have to look, does not have to look identical to the line art to get the idea. Okay, so see how I lift it up and then I see that I don't have this bit. There we go. Now I do. Now if there's any like tiny little bits I can't see, probably just sketch that in, and that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and peel this off. And I know we just spent that time adding the lines, but now just lighten them a touch, okay? Just so that you can still see them. But they're not super dark, okay? This is why I like a kneaded eraser, because I can just kind of roll it and it just picks up that pencil so beautifully. All right, I'll try not to erase too much so you can still see it. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not confident that you can, but I can see it. And if you can see yours, then we're golden, because this lesson is actually pretty simple. I chose green as my colors, but if you want to deviate and do different colors, you totally can. And what I'm going to do is I have got two brushes. One is a little bit smaller because these antler areas can be a little bit tricky. And what I'm going to do, let me just sit you right on top of there. I'm going to be using different greens to just fill in this silhouette space. And if you did the very first video, I'm using very similar greens. I'm actually going to pick all the greens in my palette, and I'm just changing colors every now and then. And then what happens is wherever those colors touch is where we get some really pretty watercolor blending effects. I can also introduce a bit of water just to get a change in value. Some areas can look a little bit lighter than others. I think that's pretty fun. But we're just focusing on trying to get the shape. Now, if you go outside the lines, it's fine because look, they're antlers. So probably they're not all identical in the real world anyways. So don't beat yourself up about it. It might be hard to see, but I have a little puddle going on, and I am just adding pigment to the puddle and pulling it down. When it comes to tiny areas like this, it's better if we can control any puddles. We don't really want any big puddles. So if you do have one, what you can do is just encourage it to come down to the next area that you're painting. Just pull that puddle down. And if you end up getting areas that just feel really light because you're pulling that water down but you're not adding more pigment, is after you've pulled it down and it's still wet, then you can just drop in some more color and then it won't feel so light. All right. I'm just starting with the antlers because I feel like they're the thinnest areas, so maybe a little bit more tricky. So I'm using my small brush. So kind of left a little puddle right there down at the base of the head. And then I'm going to go up to the antlers. And I can kind of pull and let these touch. And I don't really have a rhyme or reason for when I grab a color or which green I grab. I'm just like, haven't grabbed that in a while. And then I grab it. That is my big secret. I know I say this a lot, but it's kind of like, don't think too much about it and just enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy watching the colors just mingle. Don't grip so tight, metaphorically speaking. When we grip too tight to outcomes, at least this is what I have found, can set you up for disappointment or frustration if anything other than that outcome happens. So instead, I like to approach it with a little bit of curiosity and playfulness and, wonder what's going to happen. Adding a little bit of wonder to your life is never a bad thing. Okay, now moving on to this shape. Now that I'm done with like these smaller areas, I'm actually just going to move on to a bigger brush. So I'm going to clean that off. It's not even like a very huge brush. Okay, this is a 6. Maybe I'll just introduce a bit of water here. And just when I get to the edges, I'm gonna rotate my brush so I can get to the tip. You might choose to do other color combinations, and I think that's perfectly fine. So probably this part is the one that's the most challenging, is getting this muzzle. So just take your time, kind of outline it with the tip of your brush, and then you can just fill it in. And again, if you have any puddles, kind of push those puddles down to areas that you haven't painted yet. Kind of want to grab some of this because I haven't grabbed that color in a minute. I keep thinking I'm grabbing Viridian and then it's not. Okay, I think it's because I have my palette turned. Using the side of my brush to get right up to that edge. You don't have to, but just narrating what I'm doing in case it's helpful. Okay, almost done here with this shape. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint leaf shapes on the top. So let me show you. So it kind of looks like we've got a tree instead of the antlers. And I want to give you a couple of options because I did paint this a few times. So on this one, this is what I'm going to demonstrate this time just for time's sake. I'm just going to be adding leaf shapes to the very top bit. But I did another where I added leaf shapes kind of everywhere. And you could really spend your time filling in the whole page with these little leaf shapes. It really depends on how much time you have. And I just always want to be respectful of your time. So I'm going to show this and I'll talk through a couple of things I was thinking about while painting that. So I went for my smaller brush. And the way I started this was I went into any of these like little spots first. And what I want you to notice is I didn't paint the leaf shapes all pointing in the same direction, like all pointing up. Some of them kind of come off to the side and they kind of follow the shape of the antler. Over here is a little bit not as much, but just kind of following a shape and not keeping them all pointed the same direction is going to make it feel a little more visually interesting. And I just literally painted or grabbed different greens just whenever. It wasn't like we're going to do all these greens first, then all those. I just kind of painted it. So I'm going to kind of sketch an almond shape or like a leaf shape and then just fill it in. And that's it. I can come into this spot and you can make them bigger or smaller, and having a variety of sizes also looks really nice. Maybe this one points this direction a bit. And then this little one this one's a little tight right here, but I can do it because I've got a smaller brush. You don't have to include that little one, but I did. Okay, and then probably add something going this direction. And then I'll just kind of start filling in over here. Maybe this one points this way. Again, if you have any big puddles, just try to grab some of that extra water and pull it off of your brush by wiping it on your paper towel. Okay, gonna go here. Maybe, yeah, this little area is a little bit like, you could go lots of different directions. So however you want to do it's fine. You know what I enjoy so much about painting is that I have to just focus on what I'm doing while painting. And I can't think about other things. And I don't know if you're like me, but I feel like I'm constantly bombarded with information, and sometimes it feels very overwhelming and annoying. And sometimes I just want to turn my brain off. And this is a great way to turn your brain off because you have to be present with what you're doing. You know, I can't be checking my email and painting at the same time. Can't do it. And I think that our brains actually need that, which is kind of funny. It's like a break by doing something else, but it's like doing something really focused and intentional, I think is what the break is. Okay. And really, when it comes to however many leaves you want, it is up to you. You can like really fill up however much you want. I think I might put like a smaller one here. Or you can make it more sparse. whatever you like. And if there's an idea you have and you're not sure if it'll work, you should do it anyway. You should just try it and see. I had a few different ideas before coming up with this one, and so you see the finished painting, but there were other versions of this. So what I'm saying is, it's not a bad idea to try something. I think it's a very good idea to try something. Because even if that doesn't work out, it could give you a different idea for something else. Okay. Are you tired of my preaching? I'm like, make art, as you're sitting here making art with me, so I probably don't have to convince you. Well, I just think it's super important, as you can tell. All right. Slowly adding, and it can be uneven, like one side can have more than the other. There's really not a right or wrong way to do this. Just however much time you have. Also, I find painting a similar shape over and over again actually really relaxing. So there's one time I went to a friend's house and I literally just sat there and I painted circles. And it was so relaxing. It surprised me actually how relaxing it was. So you might find painting these shapes relaxing for yourself. Maybe I'm gonna do another one like this. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm gonna leave it. There you have it. We have our deer and our scripture. I hope you enjoyed yourself. As you finish your painting, I hope you hold on to this thought that God can be trusted, that the world He made was designed to sustain life, including yours, and what He creates is good. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye, friends.